I don't know why he's fighting so hard. He ain't that big.
Still on the bottom, huh?
Yeah.
Like a good old tail walk. Nice. We are dinking it up today. Hey guys, this is Gene Jensen. Today, we're gonna tell you guys how to find a spawning area. We get that question all the time about how to locate a spawning area on your lake. So we're gonna go through the ins and outs and all the details here as soon as we can tuck ourselves out of the wind and sit down and talk about it. Where are you from?
Around here.
Oh, really? In Dayton?
That's a good one.
Yep.
Intro it.
Not bad, look at it.
Oh,
push that button right there.
Come on, dude.
At least you only got 30 seconds into it instead of 5 minutes.
All right, guys. So we found some cleaner water. The wind is still blowing in here, so that's, you know, it makes sight fishing a little more difficult. But we're definitely seeing some bass on bed. We haven't seen any big ones yet. A couple of smaller buck bass on bed. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna go try and catch a couple of these, and we're gonna talk about just, you know, how to sight fish when you can actually see them. You know, the way to position your boat, just things to watch out for, like your shadow, things that you wear, sunglasses. We're gonna go over all the details. So here we go. All right, Gene, so when you are sight fishing clear water, what is,
Clear water.
you know, when you can see them, you know, when the fish are visible on the bed, what's some of your main things that what he does is he catches them, I guess.
I throw up to some cover and I catch a good one. Whoa, he didn't want to come in yet. So, broke off. I find a bush and I throw a rage bug into it.
What does that have to do with sight fishing?
And I drag, oh, I wasn't sight fishing. I saw a bush and I threw it to the bush.
It's a good fish though.
Broke me off because I was stupid. But lovely fun.
Man, I wish y'all could have seen what just happened down there when Gene just tried to boat flip that fish. That was hysterical.
It told me it didn't want to be boat flipped. All right, not a bad one.
All right, now can we teach about bed fishing?
Bed fishing is kind of controversial. Some people say that we should fish it, or we can fish it, and some people say that we shouldn't be fishing it. For me, I don't particularly like to bed fish. I used to love to do it, especially when I was just getting started. It's what got me hooked on bass fishing, is going around the bank and sight fishing for these bass. And now I'm to the point where I just prefer catching them off the bed or pre-spawn or post-spawn as they're moving in and out. I tend to catch bigger fish that way. But bed fishing is still a skill that I feel is important for people to know, because you learn a lot. You learn that each bass has its own little mood and their moods change, and it's just a phenomenal way of learning how a fish reacts to things. So when you're going along the bank like this, what we're looking for is we're looking for areas that have hard bottoms, sand, rock, stump bottoms, logs, things like that, things that the bass can lay their eggs on and be able to spawn effectively. Soft bottom, they try to stay away from that. So if you're casting out and dragging something along the bottom and it feels like you're dragging it across a sponge, it's probably not a good spot. But if you have stumps on that bottom, it's a lot better. So,
Okay, so a lot of times when the water's real clear and you're able to see the bed, oh, look at that gar. Yeah. So, you know, we're in some pretty clean water right now. A lot of times when we see the bed, you don't even necessarily see the fish. A lot of times we will, we'll cast to those bare spots that look like a bed, and a lot of times, you know, a bass that you can't see will then move in, and that's when you know a fish is on that bed. It's a lot different than, you know, in the video where we talk about how, you know, the water's dirty and you kind of just fan cast for these fish. So, you know, if you see a bed that looks vacant, definitely give it a cast, because there's a lot of times where, especially, you know, if there's a big female hanging around, they'll be, you know, 5-6 feet off the bed and you won't see her, and then all of a sudden you'll throw it up on the bed and see, you know, that torpedo just move up on it. So make sure that when you're moving along in that clear water, any sort of hard spot on the bottom, you see any clear spot, whether it's the size of a quarter or, you know, a big old, you know, dinner plate, make sure you toss at it even if you don't see a fish on it, because there could be a good one hanging out off to the side.
And now he says clear spot. It all depends on the bottom composition. I've been to lakes where the bottom, the hard bottom, was dark. Very difficult to sight fish in those lakes. So it's like Florida, that's like, well, the lake we used to guide on in North Carolina, you could not bed fish because the bottom was so dark that the fish just basically blended in. I'm always going to fish a lake that has a hard sandy bottom or a hard rocky bottom. But you're looking for a place that's been cleared out. Those bass will get in and they'll start fanning and pushing the leaves and the pine straw and all the stuff and what little silt is on there, they'll push it off. And they like to be able to have an area that has one little spot in it, like a rock or something hard for the female to rub her belly up against. And that's a really key spot that we'll talk about here in just a second.
Okay, so when you find a fish on bed, you know, sometimes you're just going to find the male, and then you're also going to find the male and the female. And it can be a little bit difficult to, you know, obviously the females are the bigger fish, and you want to try and get that buck bass off of there. So a lot of times what we'll do is when you throw in, 9 times out of 10 you're going to catch that buck bass first.
Or he's going to bite.
Or he's going to bite, yeah. So what you want to do is one of two things. Either you want to, if that buck bass isn't biting, you want to run that bait through the bed over and over and over again to make that female think that the buck bass is not doing his job, and that can aggravate her into moving up on that bed. Another really important thing is if you catch the male, you know, throw him in the live well for a couple minutes, and a lot of times that female for about 5 or 10 minutes will move up on that bed and take his position, and that's usually when you can catch that bigger female. So that's a pretty important key when you have a pair on a bed and you're dealing with a, you know, a real aggressive male that might be a pound and a half, and then you have a 5 or 6 pound female off to the side. You want to either get him off the bed or you want to make that female think that he is not doing his job.
Now what I'm going to do is when I run the bank, I'll get on the trolling motor and I'll just start burning the bank, not even making a cast, especially when it's really clear water or decently clear water like we got right now, and I can see out to 3 or 4 feet deep. I'm just going to run the bank until I see a clear spot. I'm going to circle back, I'm going to come over and make some casts to it. And what you're looking for, if you really just want to do it quickly and not waste a whole lot of time sitting there trying to catch one fish for 30, 40, 50 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, you know, unless it's a double digit, then I'm gonna take all day, maybe 2 days. But if you spook the fish off and it takes less than a minute for it to come back, that's a catchable bass. You're not gonna spend a whole lot of time trying to catch it unless unless their moods completely change and they leave. So what I do is I tend to sit there and I'll anchor down in shallow water. I don't want to block the deep water. I'm going to anchor down in shallow water, and I'm going to sit there and I'll wait for the buck bass to come back, and I'm going to pitch to the bed or just past it and bring it to the bed. I don't want to throw at the fish if he's off the side of the bed. I want him to come in and start guarding that bed. And you keep making those casts over and over again, and you'll notice that he'll leave and he'll come back sooner and sooner each cast, and it will be just, you'll know when he's ready to bite. He will literally whip around. He'll leave and whip right back around and come right back, and he's getting really close to biting. Then
you'll see the gills flare.
Yeah, gills flare. They get pretty mad.
Yeah.
Another way to do it is if he sets up on the bed and he's directly facing you, you throw past him, bring that jig or that Texas rig with about a 3/4 ounce weight over his back and drop it on his nose and keep hitting him and bumping him with it. You don't have to beat the crap out of him to where you knock him out, but you want to just start bumping him and bumping him and bumping him. And you'll notice as you cast and bump him, he'll start whipping around faster and faster and faster, and before you know it, you got a fish on. And a lot of times what I try to do is, as I'm taking that male off, if that female's off in deeper water looking at that bass and watching that male, you try to convince her that he can't guard the bed, and she'll come up and start getting more and more aggressive. One thing to understand though is that there's no magic bait. There's no one bait that's really good for bed fishing. I cycle through so many different baits when I'm bed fishing. I'll throw a bluegill bait that just, like a bullgill or big bluegill swim bait, or a mat lure swim bait. I'll just swim that over the bed a few times, and that a lot of times that'll get that female fired up even more. I may switch to a jig, I may switch to something else. I don't particularly like to throw a white bait, but I will if I have to. If I'm having trouble seeing that bed and having trouble locating that little sweet spot that we're about to talk about, I'm going to switch to a white one. Okay, so now the sweet spot.
Very important.
Yep.
Most important thing.
Yep, the sweet spot is it's usually about the size of your fist, a little teacup sized spot that's in that bed where they're actively laying eggs. And a lot of times it's easy to find it. It's usually like a little rock or a little place on a log that just is a little indention. It's just something different in that bed. And if you can't see it that well, just make multiple casts through that bed, just shaking that bait through that bed until you see that fish just flinch a little bit and start coming towards you, and you know you're close, and just keep trying to hit that spot inch over and inch over and inch over until you tag that sweet spot.
Squirrel
and
fish.
You will know when you're there, because that bass will react different than he has with any other cast, and then start beating that spot really cast after cast after cast after cast, and a lot of times you can get that male to come up.
Yeah, once you have the sweet spot figured out, you're going to catch both the fish. I mean, if the male and female are there,
yep.
I mean, it's done. And so there are cases too where, the sweet spot, even though it looks like it would be that perfectly bare spot, that little piece of rock or something, there will be occasions where you'll throw to that spot and you won't get the response you're looking for. When that happens, start throwing around the perimeter of that spot, because there are those rare occasions where the sweet spot could be, a little dark spot next to the light spot. Yep. So that's something where if you're hitting if you think you're hitting the sweet spot and you're not getting the reaction you're looking for, make sure to fish, a 1.5 foot diameter kind of around that spot to make sure that you're not missing it.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about boat positioning and how important that is. I mentioned it already just a little bit. There's a bed right there.
Oh yeah.
I mentioned it just a little bit already about not blocking the deep water. Deep water access, what happens is that female will come off the bed, you'll spook her, she'll come out to deep water, ta-da, and there's your boat. And you just, a lot of times you'll spook that female off permanently, and you just got no chance of catching her. So I try to position up in that shallow water. But the other thing is you got to make sure that that sun is not directly to your back, and you make sure you're not casting a shadow onto that bed, or you can completely blow the whole thing. Anchor down. I usually carry 2 anchors with me. Drop both of them down, get your boat good and solid, especially if she's worth it. If she's worth the time to just anchor down and sit there and cast after cast with multiple lures. Anything from a drop shot to a big swim bait. Try everything, see how they react, and keep making multiple casts. This could take hours. I don't like it to take hours, but there was about a 12 or 13 pounder in Texas years ago. I spent 2.5 days trying to catch. Never did. Caught the male twice, and he was 5.5 pounds, and she dwarfed him. She made him look like a little baby, so she was a monster, and she was worth the time. She really was, and it gave me kind of a good memory, kind of haunting my dreams, but it definitely was worth the time. But that's up to you, how much time you want to do it. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't.
All right, one pretty important key when you're bed fishing that's overlooked by a lot of people is a clothes you wear. I mean, these aren't great examples of what we're doing right now, of what we're wearing, but if you're really on if you're on a body of water where the water is gin clear and you have these bass, you're sight fishing these bass and they can see you a good ways away, you want to, ideally you want to wear neutral colors. You want to wear like a khaki color, or you know, like a moss green color. Make sure that you know you have a good pair of polarized sunglasses. You don't have to have, you know, a pair of Costa Del Mar 540 lenses. I mean, you know, get the best that you can afford.
Yep.
But a good pair of glasses is definitely important. Another thing too.
See, these are Wileys, aren't they?
You're wearing Strike Kings. I'm wearing Wileys right now.
40 bucks. The Wileys are 100. You really don't have to spend 250.
And I mean, we're having no problem seeing these beds, and this water isn't super clear. So anyway, the other thing is blocking out all the light. So you have neutral colors that you're going to wear. Block out as much light as you can. So you want to wear your hat really low. And we see these guys wearing these buffs. Wear that buff so that it comes down along the edge of the sunglasses, and what it'll do is, what this is doing for Gene here is it's blocking a ton of extra light that would have come in right here,
right there,
and on the other side there. And so the hat's down, and so you're able to get as much, you're able to, I guess, I don't know what you would,
I mean, it literally is a huge difference.
Yeah, you don't have like, I don't know what you would call it, just extra light coming in. You know, you're only looking through those polarized lenses. You don't have any extra light coming in from the side and reflecting off, and that's pretty important. You know, you want to give yourself, you know, the best advantage possible to be able to see those fish, identify the way they're acting, and you know, that way you can put, you know, kind of put the puzzle together quicker and catch them. I mean, you know, this time of year is a time when people catch their personal bests. I mean, every year we see pictures of just absolute giants caught, and you know, using these techniques is definitely a way to you know, increase your chances. You know, if you see a big one on bed, to you know, to catch her.
All right, so if I was to pick one bed fishing bait that I would always start with, or I will always have tied on my boat, it's going to be a stand-up jig head with a creature bait or some type of a craw bait on there, like a biospun bio craw. But it's going to be a stand-up jig head, maybe a Mega Strike. They have those little shaky twos, and then you have the Buckeye spot remover. I'll kind of go back and forth between the two of those. But you want to be able to get a small enough compact bait, like a little craw bait, in there, let it stand up, and when the fish bites it, 99 times out of 100, they've got the hook in their mouth. Very seldom do they just grab the claws and swim off with it.
I guess if I had to pick my favorite bait, it would definitely be probably a 4-inch lizard, Texas rigged with, you know, with a bullet weight, maybe a 3/8 ounce. Make sure it's pegged. I've had a lot of luck with that lizard, and also the creature baits that you're talking about. The Zoom Ultra Vibe Speed Craw, Rage Tail, the Structure Bug.
Structure Bug, yeah.
That's a real good bait. So yeah. I think unanimously, I mean, we would say, you know, a Texas rig or a jig head.
Yep, something that you can get back, make multiple casts as fast as you possibly can. You got one? Little buck bass, look at that. All right.
Thank you, sir. All right, guys. Well, we really hope these tips help you out with your bed fishing. I mean, we've had a blast out here today. We haven't really caught any huge females, but I mean, this is a ton of fun catching these guys. So good luck out there.
Yeah. Well, like I always say, be sure to introduce somebody to fishing. Introduce them to my channel. Let me help you teach them how to fish. More importantly, get out on the water, go out and catch some fish, and have a great day.